Okay, welcome everyone to Staffordshire University and the opening and launch of the Centre of Biomechanics and Rehabilitation Technologies. I'm Dr. Helen Branthwaite and I work within the team here at Staffs. The unit has been set up to showcase our research, and our research spans the field of biomechanics from its clinical application, assistive technologies to scoliosis and spinal function. Within our team, we explore musculoskeletal dysfunction related to pathology, tissue mechanics, particularly in the diabetic foot, and footwear biomechanics related to design and therapeutic interventions, to name but a few of our projects. Our collaborations span the globe with visitors and partners from India, Romania, the United States, Australia, Italy, Portugal, Tanzania and Brazil, to name just a few. The list does go on. We have grown our knowledge from working with these people, as well as developing an extensive understanding of other cultures and practices. So, my first welcome today is to our Vice-Chancellor, Pro-Vice-Chancellor of the University, Ayun Ellis. I've promoted you already, sorry, who is going to extend his warm welcome to everybody here.
Good afternoon, everybody. Very warm welcome to this important event this afternoon. In many cases, I think the majority of you who are attending today, both in person and those of you who are joining us via web from other parts of the globe, will already have a really good familiarity with the work that we've been doing here for a number of years. So on one hand, this is a launch of a new centre, and over the past 12 months, we've been reviewing all of our areas of expertise, and we've designated 3 centres of excellence in research. And we're very proud that the Centre for Biomechanics and Rehabilitation Technologies, under that new name, is really recognising that we have incredible expertise in this area, which has developed over a number of years. And many of you in the audience today are part of that journey of collaborators, of people who've worked with us in particular elements of that work. But it is really important today that we are kind of launching this and taking the opportunity, if you like, to celebrate both the point on that journey that we've reached in terms of our research expertise and focus, but also to be future focused and look at the opportunities that we have now to really develop this further, working with yourselves in partnerships. Staffordshire University has positioned itself now as the connected university. We see, as many universities do, the challenges to see the relevance of what we bring, not just to our area but to society. And we do that very definitely by having a strong focus on our teaching excellence, but also to ensure that we have research-informed teaching and that we're able to contribute through translational research and knowledge exchange to make a difference to our societies. And that, in particular in this context, can manifest through strong partnerships that we have with the NHS, with other educational institutions, and through a number of different partners. And so this centre really characterises all of the things that we are seeking to do in terms of research. So it was a very logical decision that this should be one of our foremost centres of excellence. That working in partnerships is absolutely critical to us. The research excellence framework sets us up, one might say, in competition with one another. There's a competition to say who can do the best research. But the people that will do the best research are those who are collaborating with others who are doing research. So the extent of the collaborations, I'm sure, will become evident as different people speak after me at this launch event. But we truly have a global network of collaborating partners who are working with us to do some world-leading research in this particular area. The second thing is that our research is very much translational. It's looking at research that will have an impact. So whether that's the clinical application of some of this work, it's about making a difference. So we're very proud of that focus of our research onto practice. And I think the third element that I'd point to, which is very much in evidence through this centre and other work, is the multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary nature of the work that we're seeking to do. So most of the exciting innovations happen, as many of us know, not by working just in isolation within our own particular discipline areas and a narrow focus, by looking at the opportunities to collaborate at the interface between different disciplinary areas. And certainly that has been the case. And I think the title of the centre now, and reflecting the progressive influence that different technologies are having on the work that we're doing, is well captured. So we're really thrilled. I'm very thrilled that we are launching the centre today. I'm particularly pleased that so many of you are able to join us today, and of course it's feeding into a conference which has become an annual feature now, reflecting the strength of collaborative network that we have. And I'm sure that as people come up and speak after me, what you'll get by the end of that is a number of different lenses and perspectives on the importance of the work that we've done to date, but also perspectives on the key opportunities that we now have moving forward. So I think I've probably filled my allotted time. Thank you to those of us who are joining us but aren't in the room today. You have valued partners. And I wish the centre every success. And I hope that we are able to extend the range of collaborating partners that we have. Thank you all very much.
Okay, as was mentioned there, the launch here has been coincided with our annual Biomechanics conference, which is in its 17th year now. When you develop an idea, you always need someone to have a belief in what you're dreaming about. And certainly our next speaker was that person, Dr. Ram Gopal. Ram was previous the Dean and Pro Vice Chancellor, and he was instrumental in developing the clinical biomechanics here at Staffordshire University. And even though he has retired, Ram still supports us and has an active interest in our work and regularly attends events that we host. So, my next guest speaker is Dr. Ram Gopal.
Thank you for that. It is my pleasure to be here today. And my brief is to say something about the background to what we're about to inaugurate. And I have to say that in between 3 to 5 minutes. And I have to do it eloquently and effectively. And of course, well, I always do what my younger brother tells me to do. And I'm sure you'll get the joke later. Since we're talking about time, and time being the determining factor, I thought about time itself. The notion of the Big Bang, when did it all start? And then I thought about the Big Bang itself. What happened before, i.e. the T-1? And then I thought to myself, when you look at cause and effect, X and Y, there's always the potential for X, then Y in many of the variations that could happen. I wondered about the staff who were at Madeley College so many years ago. What would have happened if they decided they were going to join the Manchester Metropolitan University? But they didn't. They came to Staffordshire. At that time, it was either North Staffordshire Polytechnic or Staffordshire Polytechnic. And of course, when they came, they joined the geography department. And they started a course which was called Recreation Studies. And it was, I believe, the first of its kind in the entire country. And of course, post-92, the university achieved university status, and of course there was a restructuring, reorganization, and the team moved from the geography department to the Faculty of Sciences. At that time it was led by Dr. Cooper. The head of recreation, which later became part of sport, health and exercise, was Dr. Basil Ashford. And I can honestly say that they were the two people who probably did start, if you like, the nidus, the kind of nest that perhaps we've seen over the years, building and building in terms of reputation. Obviously, us as the School of Health, the 8th school, the newest, if you like, we joined the university in 1995. And being the new kid on the block, we had to learn, and sometimes learn the hard way. But the rest of the universities were very helpful. They helped us with validation programs, developing degree programs, etc. And I was part of an interview panel, which was led by or chaired by Dr. Cooper. One of his aims was to increase the research activities in the School of Sciences. And of course, one of his aims was also to increase, if you like, courses related to sciences, as opposed to just sport, health, and exercise, i.e. physiologists, biomechanics, etc. And he decided he was going to appoint some more scientists. I was on the panel when a postdoctoral researcher was appointed. His name was Yanis Giakis. There were, of course, other structural developments. And through mutual agreement between the Dean of Sciences and the Dean of the New School of Health, that perhaps we should have sport, health and exercise as part of the School of Health. And of course, that was approved by the university. And what can I say? When it was approved for staff to move from sciences to the School of Health, it was a bit like, you know what, Brexit. There were those who wanted to remain and those who wanted to leave. And the reason why those who wanted to remain was because the new School of Health didn't have a track record in terms of research and development. And those who wanted to leave saw the potential because the School of Health had links with the NHS. 3 hospitals in Shropshire, 2 hospitals in Stafford, plus the community services. And I recall Yanis Giakis, when we took over the School of Health, he came to see the Dean of Health, and he said to him, I would like a force plate to be installed in the lab. And Neil, having a degree in health economics, said his first question was, how much? And Yanis said, well, maybe about 50K. You should have seen my friend, my colleague, my boss, Neil, his face. Anyway, he went along with that, and he installed it, or had it installed. And when I went to the lab, and I thought to myself, a force plate, is that how much it costs to put a force plate? 50K? That's a lot of money. Yanis, being a young researcher, he decided he was going to build his own team. And he also appointed another researcher who he supervised for a while, but then he decided to go somewhere else. So the young researcher was left behind, and he decided he was going to continue his studies here, his PhD, under the supervision of 2 professors. One Professor Peter Dangerfield, and the other one Professor Tom Cochrane. And the Dean also left the School of Health. He took up a post in the NHS as the Chief Executive of a new structure called Training and Development for Doctors and Allied Professionals. Another colleague of mine, who is here today and will be following me, said to me, do you know what, Ram? There is this guy who is in the corner beavering away and no one is taking any notice of him. If you don't do anything, he'll go. And of course, at that time, I thought about it and I said to myself, yes, I must do something. I also heard that there was a job offered and he was thinking about it. So I decided I was going to have a meeting with the Vice-Chancellor, Deputy Vice-Chancellor, and anybody else for that matter. And I chose the moment when we were talking about staff development strategy or development strategy, including budgets. And I'm sure colleagues here will know about budgets. And they needed to be convinced that it would be worthwhile investment that the researcher be kept. And I'm glad they did. As the young researcher carried on, and I'm sure you will know by now, I'm referring to the one and only Professor Nachipan Chokalingam, who's better known to his friends and everybody else as Nachi, and the rest, as they say, it's history. Through his effort, he managed to gather a range of people, and a number of colleagues are here, who've been supporting him in order to move the agenda forward. And I cannot say how many PhD students he supervised. I cannot say how many people, through attending the conferences, I've met. And earlier you mentioned about the global network. And it's always been a pleasure to do that. I've had the privilege of being one of his companions on his journey to date. And Nachi does remind me of Steven Pinker's kind of book about enlightenment now. That is reason, science, humanism, and progress. Over the years, I think I've missed about 5 out of the so-called 17 conferences. But I've always looked forward to receiving his annual account of his team and his achievement. And I do emphasize the team because it's not a one-man band. Nachi is one of those individuals who can manage to strengthen his network In fact, he increases his currency of network almost by the year. Every time he has a new conference, there are new people around. It might also be a cliche to say that we're living in an interesting time. In the words of Harari, the author of Homo Deus, A Brief History of Tomorrow, the 20th century will be dominated by algorithms. That algorithm is arguably the single most important concept in our world. That our knowledge is increasing at breakneck speed. Artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, big data, and genetics, which of course could and would have an impact on the nature of biomechanics in years to come. Information entropy is a possibility, and the solution might be in greater sharing of data and greater sharing of knowledge across disciplinary as well as geographical boundaries. I congratulate the Centre and the new Centre for what they have achieved to date and what they will achieve in the future. I do wish members of the team and everyone here all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Ram. A nice little summary of our journey to date. So, the next speaker, Ruth Chambers, is a visiting professor here to the centre, and she works locally and chairs the local CCG. She's collaborated with us for a number of years and has helped us to recruit and support clinicians in some of the projects that we deliver. And I think she's going to mention in her little speech in a minute about the LBET project, which is engaging elderly people in exercise. Ruth.
Who's putting the PowerPoint?
Yeah, just click it.
So this one.
So yeah.
That?
I think so, yeah.
Fine, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm a GP by trade. I've been with Staffordshire University for 20 odd years. I've just stepped down as the chair of the CCG, and at the moment I'm working what they call Staffordshire STP, Staffordshire Sustainability and Transformation Programme Partnership. And that's what you need to know, because this is where the centre should be aiming at the NHS at scale, whether we're talking about the long-term plan from the national leads down to the front line, where you have social care and frontline nurses, doctors, managers. Oops, sorry. This is our population, and this population is very relevant to this centre because we need to understand how many people have got long-term conditions, the fact that there is deprivation around here. It's nearly a 1.2 million population across Staffordshire. Oops, sorry. Is there some... oh. Right. Okay, got it now. Sorry. So my purpose over the job I do at the moment is bringing in external funding, as I know Natchi is good at, and trying to get technology-enabled care services out at scale. Now, for me, in general practices, we have 155 across Staffordshire. It's to try and get people doing video consultation, e.g. care homes with general practices, trying to use trusted apps. And I've had a lot more to do in that respect with Keele University. And again, I perceive that Keele and Staffordshire are too much in parallel and not enough interactive over, e.g. the centre going forward. Telehealth and Facebook particularly. And telecare is obviously about assistive technology and social care, which again should be absolutely key to the centre. And it's again understanding where you put these kinds of technology across the different age groups, that they all fit in somewhere. And what I do locally across the practices and across the frontline settings is just to come up with pathways, and then starting at the top right, going down, this is hypertension, but I've done them for all sorts, including musculoskeletal and so on. Starting off with how you diagnose people, how you give them online clinical management, help with their lifestyle habits, support for carers, which is obviously very relevant here today, and palliative care and focus on other comorbidities. And then getting to that frailty and assistive technology in the spirit of LVET and so on. But a lot of that, again, is about prediction and using artificial intelligence or risk prediction, or however one does it. ICR stands for Integrated Care Records. And again, that's something for you to realise, that the university mustn't be out there on a limb, that we are aiming to get integrated care records between the ambulance, all the settings and social care over the next few months. And again, to understand how different it is across the Staffordshire, it's not the same everywhere. So I keep a record of how we're understanding to try and get the different, what we call clinical commissioning groups, so there's 6 in Staffordshire all coming together, hopefully merging in the next few months, and what kind of technology they're using. And I give practice reports to absolutely every practice. And I use league tables, and I use how they're doing against indicators to persuade them to use technology. And again, that's something that we could work with a lot more. So it's not just this really good lot of rehabilitation. It's, so how do we pitch it? How do we get clinicians asking for it? How do we make the case for it so that the NHS will commission it on an invest-to-save basis? So take that type 2 diabetes, which is the bottom row. This particular practice only controls the blood pressure of 2/3 of the patients, compared to the CCG average being 3/4 and the national average. So why don't they use different kinds of technology? And again, what we should be looking for are all the outcomes on the right-hand side, because otherwise the NHS won't commission it. So we want improved clinical outcomes, we want quality targets and wealth creation. So you want the persons to stay in work if they need rehabilitation and frailty. They need to be kept as independent as possible. Sorry, we get rid of that one. And again, about risk stratification. So we might be talking about artificial intelligence. And I've connected a pharma company with Keele University Primary Care, and they're looking for artificial intelligence going through all the practice databases, so 1.2 million, looking for people who might have atrial fibrillation, irregular heart rate, and not be diagnosed by just looking at some of the data that's captured in there. Now, why can't we do the same for other conditions? We use Facebook a lot. Now, people say to me, oh, you know, we don't want the NHS name blemished with Facebook, but we've now got 100 of our 155 practices set up with public Facebook. We can put population health messaging out there. Yesterday, perchance, I went with the Facebook lead to meet Jack Brereton in Houses of Parliament, and we met Matt Hancock while we were there as Secretary of State. Facebook HQ is very keen to get involved with us, California or here, and so they're giving me free use of the Rathbourne Square headquarters of Facebook for Technology-Enabled Care Services conference in June the 19th. Natchi is going to present at it so that we can bring in that wider perspective. Now, I'm a visiting professor, but people at Staffordshire Uni don't really ask me for my my connections. There doesn't seem to be a culture here about how can we all work together and take mutual advantage and exploit each other in the spirit of adoption at scale and sustainability, so that what you're doing, and I would say I'm a bit allergic to the term research, because I do service evaluation, service redesign, so we can turn around the papers and the evaluation, the evidence within a year, rather than the research taking maybe 3 or 4 years. But if you take Facebook, then we've helped in the School of Health with Chris Gidlow's INHR project on NHS healthcare to set up a NHS Health Check, to set up a Facebook patient commentary group, and it's got about 260 members of the public in, and they're commenting on the research as it progresses. And it's a kind of easy thing to set up, and very few people drop out of it. So to make technology happen at scale, then we need to be pushing for this to become usual practice and not just a special thing. We need to be making sure that the outcomes everyone in this centre is going for mean something to the NHS from productivity and savings, and mean something to the patient and the carer. We need the resources to do that, equipment and competence, and we need to be perhaps not going to a very special lot of rehabilitation equipment when something simple would do. Or if it is that special lot of equipment and approach, it's got to be justifiable. So please, I haven't mentioned social care much, but I do work with, trying to get Alexa kits out there at the moment to frail people. And it's coming to me as I'm sitting there listening to Ram that I really should be connecting with Nachi more about the fact we're getting these Alexa kits out there through all sorts of people. And I can be so useful to you because I know that we've got to be very careful about things like clinical indemnity. So we'll go therefore with just people out there with the informal carers and the patients. And I know we need to be gathering the evidence to prove the case. And I often work with students to have patient phone calls so we can gather the evidence which can then get into international reputed journals. And so lastly, the LBET. So Nachi and I think, interacted over this about 3 years ago. We were bringing in, as I remember, Dr. Adiemo, who is a professor and a psychiatric lead, because so many people who've got psychiatric problems in older age have agitation. We need to be able to make sure that we can distinguish between agitation and frailty. I work very closely with Dr. Amit Arora, who is a national expert on frailty. He's part of the NHS testbed programme for heart failure that's just been awarded for UH&M. We've got so many connections that from this conversation I'm having with you now, that's where we need to go to make sure that the centre isn't out on a limb somewhere and you get double the impact by making sure from the beginning you're embedded in what the NHS wants and what you can provide. So thank you all very much for inviting me.
Thank you, Ruth. Now, continuing with our community relationships, our next speaker has worked with us for many years and influenced our design on our MSc award. Roger Whittaker is the lead the lead for the Allied Health Professionals in the West Midlands Partnership NHS Trust and has helped the development of the MSc in clinical biomechanics right from its start. Roger.
Thank you very much, and thank you for that kind and humbling introduction. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Roger Whittaker, as you've already heard, and I've been a podiatry clinician, manager and professional lead for podiatry services in Staffordshire for the last 35 years, and boy have they flown. Over that time, I've seen radical changes from my profession, from very much a social care type of service to a much more specialised lower limb health focused one. For example, I started as a full-time senior 2 chiropodist at that time in my first clinical role. My last full-time clinical post within the NHS was as an MSK rheumatology advanced podiatrist working across both primary and secondary care services. Podiatry in the NHS has professionally certainly moved on. Well, it certainly has made name badges a lot bigger. Midlands Partnership Foundation Trust are possibly one of the biggest, if not the biggest, mental health and social care trust in the country, and it covers a massive geographical area of Staffordshire and Shropshire in lots of other services it provides. More recently in my career, the last 5 years in particular, has been as professionally for podiatry services, and I've been supporting and developing many other clinical service specialisms in podiatry, involving diabetes, orthopaedic triage, podiatric surgery, and both adult and paediatric biomechanics services. Part of my work over this time has been to forge much stronger links with Staffordshire University to support the services we provide and also to nurture research opportunities within the communities we serve. To this end, we are currently developing joint research opportunities to attract NHS research funding related to human mechanics and diabetes, and I'm sure Panos will later actually discuss it a little bit more. We're currently setting up data sharing agreements that will allow clinical testing and health epidemiological data that's routine collected by podiatrists at core assessments to provide data that will support research design and research opportunities in the future. The patient and public involvement agenda within our trust and the networks actually work very well in the mental health section of our trust, but we're already trying to establish and improve collaboratively with Staffordshire University how we can make this work better to involve other services, such as the diabetes work we're carrying out at this moment in time. On a personal note, as you may know, I've known Nachi for quite a period of time now, I actually bought into his vision and Staffordshire University's vision for services for the future at a very early stage in my development, and particularly when the courses that were developed and the facilities of biomechanics at the university were relatively elementary. I've had great pleasure over the years, not only encouraging my trust clinicians to attend courses and events at the university, but also seeing the MSc qualification turn into a PhD. However, more fundamentally, I've seen the excellent way that Staffordshire University, organisationally and infrastructurally, have strongly supported the biomechanics team to enable them now to have state-of-the-art facilities that will continue to support and lead international research on human musculoskeletal diagnosis problems. I don't think that Nachi at this moment in time has been approached by Professor Noel Fitzpatrick, this is a vet yet, but I'm quite sure he will do over a period of time. Allied health professionals represent the third largest professional workforce in health and social care sector. AHPs, as they're affectionately known, include physiotherapists, occupational therapists, podiatrists, art therapists, dietitians, paramedics, radiographers, speech and language therapists. There are actually 14 in total, but I'm not going to mention them all. The National Institute for Health Research of Allied Health Professional Strategy for 2018 to 2020 sets out 5 key clear strategic goals on leadership: research capacity and capability, patient and public access to research, innovation, and building strong partnerships. This actually complements existing National Institute for Health Research reports and also seeks to build on initiatives led by partners within the NHS, such as NHS England's Allied Health Professions into Action. My new role that I commenced in January this year with the Midlands Partnership Foundation Trust is as AHP lead and specialist clinic practitioner for Staffordshire Care Group. One of my aims is to support the research and development of all local research activities by AHPs within our organisation. I know that working closely with universities, and particularly Staffordshire University, who I obviously know really well, we can make this happen and support and improve care for patients that we're commissioned to see. However, as Nachi and I are very much aware, there's always a lot more to be done. However, I think that the development of the Centre for Biomechanics and Rehabilitation Technologies is absolutely wonderful way in moving this agenda forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roger. Now on to one of our other visiting professors, Peter Dangerfield. Peter has recently retired, but still heavily involved in the Royal College of Surgeons as an examiner and continues to make a substantial contribution to medical education here in the UK. He has worked with us extensively on scoliosis, and he's a very, very wise man, because as we endure the current polar vortex weather, Peter is somewhere nice and sunny, and he's going to come to us in this room by a video.
Good morning. I'd like to welcome you to Staffordshire University and the laboratory which has been set up by Nachi. I first met Nachi in 1998, and he subsequently went on to do a PhD with me in the field of scoliosis. The work at Staffordshire is a true example of international and multidisciplinary research. His appointment at the university has enabled him to attract funding to a range of projects and collaborations within the UK and internationally. Nachi works alongside surgeons, physicians, other health scientists, scientists themselves, engineers, and the allied health professions and sports scientists. My own research into scoliosis and spinal deformities and growth and other aspects of growth and development have led him to focus on the spinal field, which is what the subject of his PhD was. He then has been involved subsequently with the International Research Society for Spinal Deformities, which I set up some years ago now with my colleagues in Nottingham and in Belgium. We still contribute on a regular basis to their meetings. In the UK, the British Scoliosis Society, which is active in the field of spinal deformities, has met alongside Nachi in the Staffordshire area at the university here, and of course has developed a large range of ideas from the point of view of scoliosis treatment. Nachi himself has, with his colleagues at the hospital, continued research into orthotics and the foot. Nachi invited me to be a visiting professor, a role which I've enjoyed undertaking, and I hope to continue to advise and collaborate with him on a range of projects. His current projects involve the use of investigations into plantar soft tissues, led by Nachi and his team. And this contributes very much to the functional anatomy of the area concerned, but also to the important side of diagnosis and treatment of patients, a good example of applied clinical research. Data visualizations and vector coding is something I have seen the team, particularly Rob, undertake, and I think they're making great headway in what is essentially a very complex field. The core staff, along with other visiting professors and fellows, contributes to several international learner societies, such as the International Society of Biomechanics. I've also seen international visitors come to view the work in Stoke. They've come from the Netherlands, Germany, Romania, India, Poland, Belgium, Spain and Italy, and other places as well. I hope this meeting allows you the opportunity to meet with the team here in the laboratory at Staffordshire University, and of course to be able to chat freely to Nachi about his work and such. I wish you a successful meeting.
Thank you, Peter. A true professor with so many books behind him there. You know, we couldn't have asked for anything more. And I think wherever he is, he's obviously having a very nice time. He looks very well. So now we'll move on to an internal member of staff, Emma Davis, who heads up our research of environment and development here at Staffordshire University. And she's helped us develop our group. She continues to support us in a variety of ways. Emma.
Thanks, Helen, and thanks for the opportunity to speak today. I've worked with Nachi and the team for more years than I'd care to remember, really. Nachi asked me, when he spoke to me about delivering this session, what the first grant we worked on together, and I still can't remember it, Nachi, I apologise for that. There's been many since. We've heard today about the role of the research as playing of the team. I just wanted to speak a little bit about the importance of the team to the university and its research priorities and aspirations in the future. The team have got specialist academic expertise, but they're also really viewed as role models across the university in their professionalism and how they approach their individual careers and their interactions with others and the collaborations that we've been hearing about today. They are major players in shaping our research environment in a number of ways that I'm just going to run through a few today. And along with the broad network of visiting staff that they bring in, they really help to make the university research environment more vibrant. They generate a lot of work for us in research support services. I think it's always enjoyable to work with, but also very challenging, helping to push us as professionals, supporting the research agenda. And I think we learn from the team when we're helping others across the university. We deliver a research training programme to support and engage our staff in research. We're not a research-intensive university, so we've got a long way to go. And Nachi and Aoife and others in the team have been instrumental in helping us to deliver that programme, giving up their time to share their knowledge and expertise with others across a range of subjects, from research ethics to how to appropriately reference your research, how to develop international collaborative links. And those sessions are always really well received, and I know colleagues get lots of follow-up support as well. Research ethics at Staffordshire University has undergone some changes which have recently been led by Nachi in his role as chair of the ethics committee. We've seen a change in how research ethics is supported and administered, and we've seen a lot of improvements there, and we look forward to working with the team to help to progress that area as well. And Rewsbury in particular spends a lot of time on a weekly basis supporting the process of ethical applications. Alongside that, there's research integrity, which is about how we do research here at Staffordshire. And I think we've got some great role models and best practice that we often use for how the team deal with their ethical applications. As a university moving forward, we've got a research strategy, and but building on from Yain's comments about us being a connected university, we've got three main areas that we wish to push and three funds that we're aligning with, which very much fit in with the future of the centre. Linking to industry to make sure that the research that we do has direct relevance to local and regional companies to help them grow and develop and get new products out to market, and we've got some good examples of that activity. Working with the NHS and their funding streams to make sure that our research benefits patients and the way that services are delivered in the NHS. And then post, dare I say, the B word, the internationalisation of research, how we can build our networks with other countries and other research centres. And Nachi's team are really pushing forward with that aspect. And I've got lots of funded research collaborations with international partners, which we're beginning to see fruit. So I think moving forward with the future funding landscape for research activity, the focus that we're putting internally on helping to drive forward our research agenda, the team are a very much an instrumental part of that activity, taking us forward as an institution. So thank you to the team for all the leadership role that you play across the institution, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emma. I'm sure we'll continue to keep you busy. Our next speaker now is one of our associate professors who works here in the team of clinical biomechanics and rehabilitation technologies, and that is Panos. He's going to give you an insight in some of the current projects that we're delivering, and particularly on diabetes. Panos.
Thank you, Helen. Now, in the next 10 minutes, I'll try to give you an overview of our work within our team. I'm conscious of time, so from the extended list of currently active projects, I've selected two that I think showcase the depth and breadth of our research. The first one is in the area of diabetic foot, and more specifically, it's about the prevention of diabetic foot ulcers with the use of bespoke insoles that have been 3D printed. Now, as most of you in the audience would know, foot ulceration is a preventable common complication of diabetes, which can lead to an amputation. 135 people in England alone have an amputation every week as a result of diabetes, but we know that 80% of these amputations could have been prevented with correct management. Even if an ulcer heals, it can still have devastating effects for the quality of life and life expectancy of a person with diabetes. For example, we know that ulceration increases the 5-year risk for death by 250%. Diabetic foot also poses a major challenge to healthcare systems. Diabetic foot ulcers specifically cost to NHS more than the three most common types of cancer put together. Now, ulcerating for the first time is an important milestone, and that's because a first ulceration, so a primary ulceration, increases substantially the risk for ulcerating again. Now, this, combined with the increased mortality that's associated with ulceration, has highlighted the prevention of primary ulcers as a key priority for research. This priority has been acknowledged and highlighted also by almost every major organization working on diabetic foot. However, high-quality research on this area is still lacking. From existing interventions, we know that the use of bespoke protective insoles can protect the diabetic foot from recurrent ulceration. So that's an ulceration in a person that has already ulcerated in the past. But the effectiveness of this type of intervention for preventing primary ulcers has not been tested yet. And that's one of the main reasons for that, is that existing methods for designing and producing protective insoles are simply too expensive and time-consuming so that can be offered to everyone that needs them in order to prevent primary ulcers. At this point, I have to highlight that the people that are at risk of developing a first ulcer are substantially more than those that are at risk of ulcerating again. Now, in order to overcome this challenge, we have been working with industry to develop an automated and integrated system called imprints for the automated design and 3D printing of bespoke protective insoles that can offer optimum cushioning at a fraction of the cost of existing systems. In order to produce a pair of insoles, the patient simply has to rest their feet on the scanner shown here. Then the scanner scans the plantar surface of the foot with the press of a button. The scanning of each foot takes about a second. This information is directly sent to software that automatically designs a form-fitting insole. Apart from the shape of the insole, this algorithm also customizes the stiffness of the insole to offer optimum cushioning in different areas of the foot. For example, here you can see different pressure zones on the insole. We have different densities and therefore different stiffness for optimum cushioning. The design of the insole is digitally transferred to a remote print farm for manufacturing. The manufacturing takes about 2 hours. Now, what makes this process unique is the automated algorithms for design and optimization. And these algorithms are based on our work on the biomechanics of the diabetic foot and also on optimum cushioning. This concept has already won a competition, a national competition about improving the care of diabetic foot ulcers, and it has been pilot tested in people with diabetes and neuropathy. Our lab-based tests have shown that the insoles that are produced with this system can indeed offload the foot more effectively than insoles that are part of standard care. A health economic study also showed that using this system can reduce the cost of a pair of insoles for NHS by more than 50%. The system now is fully certified, and a randomized control trial on its effectiveness has been commissioned by a major NHS clinical network. If this randomized control trial is successful and the outcome is positive, then we could see the system being part of a clinical practice within the next 3 to 5 years. Now, this, I said before, this is a collaborative project between us and industry, and more specifically with a company called CATSCAN based in Chester, and they are our industrial partner in 3D scanning and 3D printing. This project has also led to 2 spin-out projects, one on a non-electronic pressure sensor and another one on customized insoles for improving blood perfusion in the diabetic foot. And now for the second application, I would like to go into a completely different area. And I would like to talk to you about a novel method to study tendon biomechanics in vivo. Now, again, as most of you might already know, human tendons adapt to the mechanical loading they experience. And these adaptations can be uniform, so a tendon can become uniformly stiffer or thicker with loading, or it can be regional. So a part of the tendon can respond differently to the rest of the tendon to the same external stimulus. Understanding how a tendon responds to external stimulus is very important in order to have effective and evidence-based rehabilitation for tendon injuries. Now, there has been a lot of progress in this area, but our understanding on regional adaptations of tendons is still very limited. And that's because the research on tendon biomechanics is dominated by the assumption of homogeneity. In other words, tendons are assumed to be as simple uniform springs, which they are not. And this assumption doesn't leave any room for regional adaptations, which we know that exist. So at this point, it's clear that in order to promote evidence-based rehabilitation for tendon injuries, we actually need to move beyond the assumption of a uniform, a simple spring tendon, to methods that allows us to study how different areas of the tendon are affected by loading. In order to do that, we are developing or have proposed a novel ultrasound-based technique that uses measurements of the cross-sectional area of the tendon of a tendon under tension to detect localized stiffening or softening. From your experience, you know that if you stretch a deformable material, this material will become thinner. Imagine stretching a rubber band. The more you stretch, the thinner it gets. Now, going back to tendons, our computer models have showed us that if a region in a tendon adapts differently to external loading, then this is also going to be reflected on how this area becomes thinner under loading. In other words, localized softening or stiffening can cause an irregularity in the measured change in the cross-sectional area, which can be used to detect localized softening or stiffening. As you could imagine, in order to implement this method, there is a need for a very accurate way to measure cross-sectional area. And in order to achieve that, we have built a scanning device that allows us to scan the length of a tendon in a repeatable and operator-independent way. And this system was built with the support of funding from IEPM and the British Orthopedic Foot and Ankle Society. And we are currently in the process of developing the algorithms for the automated measurement of the cross-sectional area. And this is done with the support of an external grant from UK India Education and Research Initiative. At this point, I have to say that this is a collaborative project between us, Liverpool John Moores, and Staffordshire University from India. Now, I hope I didn't bore you to death. If I didn't, and you want to hear some more about this project or of our research, then please don't hesitate to speak to me after this event or during the conference. Thank you very much.
I think every time we hear you speak, Panos, we learn a little bit more about what you do. It's always fascinating. We move now next to our next speaker, David Allen, who is a research associate here in the team, but he's also a PhD student, so he's going to give us a perspective on both sides. Every time I meet David, he's always very, very busy, and that's great to see, but it's generally that he's got his PhD to write up. So I hope that it doesn't take 7 or 8 years to do that, and that he gets it finalised soon. David.
Thank you, Helen. So Nachi approached me and asked to speak about my experiences as a PhD and now as my experiences as an early career researcher. And one of the reasons I applied for this PhD at Staffordshire University, because over the years, Nachi and his team have supervised a number of PhD students from start to finish. And I know for a fact that I definitely won't be the last, because there's 3 sitting in here right now. Nachi and his team have supervised students from all sorts of backgrounds, ranging from plastic surgeons, orthopedic surgeons, orthotists and doctors, all the way to sports scientists and engineers. And it just goes to show how multidisciplinary the team here is and how we all have different areas of expertise and how we all collaborate together. And in being part of such an amazing team here, we've also been given the opportunity to travel around the world and go to places and present our research in places that we never imagined of. So, for example, I got the chance to go off to Chennai in India with the Newton Baba PhD placement program as part of a PhD to go and collect some data. Whilst I was there, I even managed to sneak in a cheeky wee trip to the Taj Mahal. And that trip will always be something I would be greatly thankful for. And as an early career researcher, because we have such good connections worldwide, it provides us with the opportunity to work with world leaders in different areas of biomechanics. Some of the conversations that come to mind are conversations I've had with Professor Joe Hamill, who happens to be the current president of the International Society of Biomechanics, especially when he was here a couple of years ago giving his keynote presentations. On top of that, we also have some of the best facilities I've seen. Nachi and his team are always striving to give us the cutting edge in technology. And one of them is particularly our new laser speckle contrast imager. And that has allowed us to look at new approaches of measuring the blood flow within the foot, which 18 months ago we wouldn't have thought were at all possible. And it's these kind of advantages that naturally gives us that make, I don't know why my voice is going, that make being part of the Centre of Biomechanics and Rehabilitation Technology such an amazing place to be part of. Thank you.
Very emotional speech, David. Is that because you know you've got to submit a PhD now? Possibly. Now, from an early career researcher, I'm going to pass us our next speaker as a very experienced researcher. Although he lives a long way away, at least 3.5 hours on a plane, Alfred is one of our visiting fellows here at the university, and he's actually part of the furniture, so his face is not unfamiliar to us, and the work he's doing for podiatry at the moment is absolutely fantastic. So as a profession, he's championed podiatry throughout the EU, and I'm sure he'll go further than that. Alfred Gatt.
Thank you. Well, I come here wearing many hats. As an academic at the University of Malta, as a clinician, as a researcher, as an ex-student from this university, and as president of EMPODE, which is the European Network in Podiatry and Higher Education. My first exposure to the center here was about 15 years ago, when my interest in biomechanics, ended me up coming here, and I'm told that I made a nuisance of myself at that conference. I see Dave laughing because I asked too many embarrassing questions, apparently. Sorry, I didn't know that. From that day, then, we developed a lot of collaboration between the University of Malta and Staffordshire University. In fact, so many familiar faces here that have come to teach at our university, to our undergraduate students, and even to our master's students. And this involved me so much that I, took on a PhD here, which I finished about 8 years ago, and then which actually changed my life so much that I became a full-time academic, And besides that, as president of EMPODE, we're trying to encourage student mobility between podiatrists all over Europe. So even after Brexit, by the way, because for EMPODE, Europe is a geographical area, where we're encouraging students to go to many different European universities for their experiences, and even tutors at the end of that. Our collaboration, well, we have done so much. We have worked so much with Nachi's team. I mean, he's my mentor. He's still my mentor. I'm proud to say that. We have a memorandum of understanding between our universities, and we have worked on so many projects together. Got 50-odd papers published in diabetic foot biomechanics, orthosis. We are working on 3D printed insoles as well, auxetic materials. The list is really endless, and our little toy, thermography, where we are getting somewhere with that. I'm sure that this international collaboration will go on and on and on until we end up, we have to retire, maybe someday. So the best of luck to the center. I'm proud to be a part of it, and I hope that we will continue in this spirit of research and collaboration, taking back research into clinical practice again. Thank you.
Okay, so just before we close off for this session and launch, as long as I've been here at Staffs, probably for 20 years now, this next speaker is somebody that has always been there in lots of different hats, in the roles that he's progressed throughout the faculty. When it's been faculties, when it's been a school, we've been the faculty again. So it's with great pleasure for me to introduce Dr. Nigel Thomas, who is the Dean of Life Science and Education.
Thank you and good afternoon, everybody. So, yes, I wouldn't like to say Alfred's part of the furniture, but I know that feeling, Alfred. I also have been here a while, but deeply embedded in the university and indeed the work of the biomechanics team. So I've been asked to say a few words, but really just reflecting on the last hour of conversations and statements made rather than have some form of too pre-prepared speech. So this is my speech I've just sort of made up. And I'm going to do it in the form of a thank you sandwich. So it's a thank you to start, a thank you at the end, and an observation in the middle. So I know I stand between you and your canapes. So for some of you out there, Dave, you know, it's something I really don't want to do. So this will be brief. So the first thank you is really to all the speakers. Fantastic speeches that paid tribute to the centre and to tribute to all the work done so far. And what's interesting about that is I think the speakers and what they said indicated the breadth and depth of the relationships that have been forged by the biomechanics team with, of course, academics internationally, with key stakeholders that are academics, but also clinicians, manufacturers and industry. And that's really important. So it's a thank you to all of those. PhD students, associate professors, and of course our key stakeholders for speaking and supporting this launch of this centre today. That's one thing, thank you. The second, and drawing on quite a few things that emerged through the talks, but perhaps particularly outlined at first by our Pro-Vice-Chancellor, Ian Ellis, and then by Professor Ruth Chambers, was while recognising the significant achievements of the team in this area of research, and of course it's internationally renowned, and we know that, and the conference pays fantastic tribute to the recognition it holds worldwide, and that was recognised by all speakers. But I think through Ruth and others, it was noted not just the importance of this area of work, but the importance we need to attach the continued connections and collaborations, both across institutions, across industries, with other academics, in the changing state in the world in which we live. So I think that was almost a plea from our two colleagues there in particular, to carry on that vein of work, to continue to grow and shape. It started in sport and exercise some considerable time ago and has grown considerably both in reputation and reach. And I think that was a plea to carry on with that same mantle, keep pushing those boundaries. So that's my observation for a theme that emerged through those talks. And the last is a thanks. It is a thanks to the team. And when I say team, I could locate that within the university, but it's really the team that, as we know, extends beyond the university. Yes, it's a strong biomechanics team and a strong set of professional support staff. But again, what is this, the 15th conference? 17th, I've missed a couple. Must have had a nap. 17th conference, which does pay tribute to the team approach. It certainly does. It is this point of juncture, though, when I look at some of you and realise I think I've been a subject in quite a few of your dissertations. Some of you have pushed and pulled my knees and ligaments, Alfred, and a few others. I've just realised that. So you should be thanking me because I still feel I need a little bit of treatment, Alfred, after all that. But it is the last thank you. And, of course, a theme that has been throughout these talks has been, whilst a team approach, a team needs a leader. And in Professor Nachi Chokalingham, we have enjoyed that leadership, and without him, we would not have developed this university to have the research reputation it does in this area. So the last comment from me is a thanks to Nachi, whom I have known for over 20 years and have enjoyed the company of, and he's pushed me many times, not just physically, but emotionally at times. But it is a great thanks because whilst the team approach and needs continue, it is through Nachi, not on his own, but certainly his leadership, that has been a defining feature in the success of the centre so far, and I'm convinced the centre as we go into the future. So thanks very much, everyone, for coming. Thanks for your support for the centre and the university, and now we can enjoy our canapes, I believe. Thank you.
Okay, so that comes to the end of the opening of this centre. And I'm not going to go on much longer. I think Nigel's already hinted that there's some food waiting for us out there. So for all of you that are watching this virtually, sorry about that, but we're all going to just go now and have fizz, apparently, it says on my schedule of events. So I hope you've not let me down, Nachi.